Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown. How's it going? How's your day been? Today, it's time to react to Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, the presidential debate that I'm sure all of us have been clamoring for. In this video, I'm going to be reacting to the full. I'll be also breaking it up based off issues for like different types of content, but I'll try to be as objective as possible when laying out their answers. Um, as people know, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump because I do think he is a problem for democracy in the country. But Kamala Harris is not someone that I'm like a big fan of. So here's hoping she does better than Donald Trump. But if she doesn't, I'm gonna call her out. So let's dive right into it.
To speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is
Kamala
no
Harris,
audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for two candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
I'll put this out here. This question, are we better off than we were 4 years ago? This question is, I'm going to say it like this, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to these type of settings, you got to answer things in a way that doesn't detract your own believers, but also brings in moderate believers or moderate voters, but also realizing it's true. It's a little harsh, but it is true that some people don't understand anything about politics. Some people don't understand anything about anything. And you have to be so manipulative with words to an extent, but you can't lie, but you can't answer truthfully. Because the truthful answers to this, are we better off now than we were 4 years ago? 4 years ago was 2020. So that's like right at the beginning of the pandemic. So obviously, no, we are recovering from COVID. I think the best way to answer this is to say, we need to be honest, we need to be straightforward, but we are moving in the right direction because we are. But you always have to be considerate of the people that you're handling. You have to be considerate of the viewers, the audience. Politics is so annoying. I wish everybody was just honest, regardless of the people who are listening. If they don't know, they don't know. But we'll see how she answers, and we'll see how Donald Trump answers.
I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay. Interesting answer. Did she directly answer the question? No. Is it better now versus back then? Instead, she swerved the question, gave an answer about how she's going to either improve or continuously improve the economy to create a better situation for the people. The reason why that question is a little bit tricky, and I'm giving leeway for a reason, is because you don't want to give an inch to someone like a Donald Trump, because him and his supporters will take it to a mile, right? Because the truthful answer is it was better back then. But, I mean, you can add the context, COVID and all that stuff. But what Donald Trump and what Republicans would do is like, see, it was better back then, removing the context of before COVID. So that one's tough. I think, all things considered, I think that was a interesting way to...
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums.
He always brings up the same See, my issue with Donald Trump is he has specific talking points he brings into every single question. And he doesn't really care about answering the question or even swerving it to a point where he can answer the question in a political manner. These are political type answers. That's the best way I could do. Kamala gave a political type answer. She didn't answer it directly because if she did, she'll give too much leeway to Donald Trump and his side. So she gave a political answer. Donald Trump doesn't give any answer. He goes like, I don't do sales tax, tariffs. Okay, I did tariffs. That's kind of similar to what Kamala is doing with like the economy and whatever. And as for Trump, and then he starts going into immigration. Sorry, I got a little distracted. So I'll let him finish though.
And they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country.
This has nothing to do
and they're
with the
destroying
economy.
our country.
This is my thing.
They're dangerous.
At least
they're at the highest level of criminality.
Level of conversation.
And we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during the...
See, even the moderator's like, We're not talking about immigration. You barely even talked about the economy. The only thing you said is tariffs. You exaggerated regarding the inflation, and then you said China didn't take the tariffs off. I'm like, what are you talking about? I know I'm trying to be unbiased, but Trump can't even stay on the point of the conversation, and he didn't even elaborate. That was a give me. He could have really dove into, even though it kind of been contextualized. He could have dove into. Oh no, it wasn't better. It's not better now than back then. Back then, what I did, and you could have went into what you did, but you didn't. You didn't do any of that. You just filibustered. So yeah, and that's not it, bro. That's not it by any means.
This debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
Okay.
Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Okay.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he...
One criticism for Kamala, she needs to stop bringing up Project 2025. Well, freaking politics. I do not like politics sometimes. A lot of times. It's so annoying. In terms of a political strategy, bringing up Project 2025 has validity because you can connect it to Donald Trump very easily because a lot of the things in a good number, I'm not gonna say a lot, a good number of things in Project 2025 is pretty tangential to things that Donald Trump has said, and a lot of people associate with Project 2025 are people who used to be or are currently associated with Donald Trump. So it's a good political maneuver, but that can't be a crux. It should be maybe you can use that as like a not red herring, but a point to bring up to kind of throw Donald Trump off every now and then. But it can't be the main crux of your platform to discredit Donald Trump.
You were elected to get.
Because he already denounced it.
I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump, will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together.
Okay, then he just lied there. He said he hasn't read it, he doesn't want to read it, but also knows he has nothing to do with it, or he knows that he doesn't agree with things that are said in it. That's just a lie. I mean, that's just an inconsistency. That's political maneuvering where he says something that is easy to grasp onto for Republicans, saying, "See, he hasn't read it," but that contradicts his whole sentiment of how he disagrees with stuff in Project 2025. You can't disagree with something if you haven't read it, right? So just pointing that out.
Together, they came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic, and the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things.
It's interesting how he kind of praises how he dealt with the economy, considering Joe Biden did similar stuff to Donald Trump, and people criticize Joe Biden. So that's interesting how he kind of latched on to dealing with COVID, and I'm curious to see tries to um if he tries to bring up COVID, because you can't, because you kind of said that you did similar stuff. And if we're saying Donald Trump handled it good, then you have to say Joe Biden handled it good, because they did basically the same stuff. So that was interesting, very interesting.
But not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So
that was a pretty good answer.
Donald Trump has no plan for you.
There was not much substance,
and when you look
but
at his economic plan,
answer.
it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you, because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's very interesting, Kamala's strategy. She's not really going in depth with her economic plan. She already kind of laid it out, and she doesn't have enough time to lay it out now. So she's using credible sources, if you deem them credible, to articulate the views of her and how economists see her plan, and also outlining how she's trying to help the middle class versus Donald Trump's trying to help the rich, and framing it in that is very political maneuvering. And she's adding enough pieces to kind of lay out the damage Trump would do in terms of his plan, bringing out a recession. So very interesting maneuvering, a little bit of repetitive speech, but like I said, this is just political talk. You got to put that into their heads.
Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country.
That's a pretty weak answer to try to rebuttal what she said. She brought in sources and people to back up her claim, and Donald Trump says, "Oh, I was in finance when in education. I did finance, and a lot of scholars." He just throwing out that terminology, can't back up any of that. He just throws it out there because Republicans can capture, grasp onto that. That has no backing. That was a very empty statement. He tried to build back up his credibility in this conversation.
It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something.
That was pretty pathetic, saying she doesn't have a plan. I mean, we all know what the plan is. I mean, to the point where people are saying Kamala is communist. So she obviously has a plan, because Republicans think that her plan is bad because it's communistic. Whether you agree with that or not doesn't really matter as of right now. I disagree. I don't think it's communistic. But that was pretty weak, saying she doesn't have a plan. It's 4 sentences long. That was a very weak statement.
thing you both brought up. The vice president brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country.
I'm gonna actually write this down right over here. We'll get him real quick. I gotta write certain stuff down so I know certain key points.